Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to some of y'all, and peace out to the rest of you. Hit the share button because the message is going to be more important than the messenger. What you're going through in the Goldensphere, ladies and the gentlemen who are watching this infighting, is not new. This has happened in the Manosphere. This will happen in the Goldensphere. But there are going to be people who are not going to agree. And there are going to be some permanent splits and fractures no matter what. In the Manosphere, there are those who have fallen out before. O'Shea Duke Jackson and Donovan Sharp worked together. They're obviously not even friends anymore. They're not even friendly anymore. And there's some diametrical differences. I mean, O'Shea Duke Jackson is more pro-black. Donovan Sharp says, I don't give a guck about the community. And, that's what it is. Xanatos Clutch is not going to agree with everybody. There was a time I was too pro-black for Xanatos. And he wasn't black enough for me. I mean, pro-black enough. And that's not the case now, because I understand why it is that people have had to leave the pro-black sector behind. I am pro-black male. I still am. But I also understand that maybe I want more for many of them than what they want for themselves. And I want to point this out too, about the Goldensphere. Gentlemen, the ladies' fights with each other are not always ours. And that's why I was disappointed when I saw two men in Mrs. Golden's chat. And I think maybe they're just professional trolls and they do it to anybody, but I didn't see them do this. One I never saw before. The other one I saw in chats without trolling anybody else. And I see both of them just disrespect McCham in the chat when he wasn't disrespectful. It's not the difference of opinion that really causes feuds. It's the disrespect. That's really what causes it. See, the way Mr. Cannon handled his question and his bewilderment was more respectful. He came on to the panel, he had time to, and he asked McCham without crapping him, well, thanks for the respect, man. So what is your interest in the sphere? And then he later on says, in my own sphere, I wouldn't say this as nicely, but the fact is we just don't give a rat's behind about anybody else's opinion. He didn't even single McCham out while he told him this. He just said, we're not really concerned with anyone else's opinion because this is for us. McCham was respectful the whole time. Two men, and I'm going to call your names, Adonis and Carbon Master, got disrespectful. This is not how we handle it. The reason why the Manosphere is bigger than the Goldensphere now is not only because it's been around longer, it has also been based on how people handle their grudges. They don't hate each other until they have to. There was a time that I thought that Lion of MGTOW, years ago, I thought Lion of MGTOW didn't like black folks. I thought he was talking about black women when he would say Klingon bitches. Turns out he wasn't talking about black women. He was talking about the hypocritical hyenas, the gynocrats, the matriarchs, specifically the ones who take on this mindset of we deserve all the credit for everything that goes right in the black community, and only the credit, and nobody except us deserves any praise, but the black men get all the blame, and that's it, and that's all there is to it. There were those who actually think like this, and this is who he was talking about. He wasn't going in on black women as a whole. And I'm going to be honest, ladies in the Goldensphere, you don't hate unambiguous dark-skinned black women as a category, but you don't make it clear enough that you're talking about the haters when you say negative comments. You're talking about the ones who hate you. They're not unambiguous dark-skinned black women, ladies. All you got to do is change the vocabulary to be more specific. You can have an acronym for them. ICSH. Inferiority Complex Suffering Haters. That's it. ICSH. Now, I know inferiority complex suffering haters is long, like when I use IDNS, IDNS, intentionally dysfunctional negative stereotypes. But when I say IDNS, people ask, what does it mean? I tell them, but, after a while, everybody that reads a comment knows. And so now when I say IDNS, fewer people ask me what it means. It's the same with you. Well, she's an ICSH. That separates maybe, let's say, Okay, that may be what separates a lady that wants everybody to get equal roles from a lady that actually has a problem with lighter skin or mixed black women categorically. Because there are going to be people that are unambiguous, heavily melanated, and they really believe what they've been told about being oppressed. A lot of what they believe is true, some of it's not, but they won't be lying in the things they say. And then there'll be others that will have heard what you said. There's no way we would intentionally try to wipe you out of representation. It wouldn't make sense. We wouldn't do that to you. We never even thought of us as different until recently. And they still say, nah, you knew what you was doing, light bright. That's the ICSH. So sometimes the vocabulary is more problematic than anything. But I heard these two gentlemen, and there was nothing more to say. These two gentlemen, one called him Crispy, called McCham Crispy. That's not how we doing it, bro. If McCham is out of line being there, okay, well, you know what? It's really up to Miss Golden if he was out of line on her channel. And that's part of what Caesar included. He asked him, but then he said on my own channel, my question will be harsher, but you know what? It's your channel, Golden. It's your platform. He was respectful. Y'all just dissed the man. Now, he said what his reason was there. His reason for being there, you still dissed him. You just categorically dissed him like he was an intruder. Make no bones about it. He's the one that has said the MLS folks are still relatives. They're just not identical to the community from which they came anymore. He and I disagree on 2 points. One, are light-skinned black people possibly black? Okay, now maybe my DNA results will come back that I have 35% black blood, maybe 65%, whatever the case is. I don't think that being light-skinned means you aren't black. There was a time I took his point because he showed me a link to a 2014 study. Then a 2017 study showed that there actually were some rare but extant genes for light skin that were clearly African. They were older than the human species. Yeah. So therefore, you could be light-skinned and still be black. Now, that's my standpoint, based on the links that were sent. J. Lion Menelik is the one that has the link to the 2017 study. I didn't hate him, McCham. I just said, okay, well, I mean, he has one study. I just have a more recent link. So my opinion is different based on that. I don't think that McCham really owes it to the black woman of the UK or the US to really go and fight about media representation and fight for their right to be represented in the media, because for one, we're all going to be represented. Every human phenotype will be represented, good and bad. Number two, media representation, ladies, and I want all of y'all to understand this, whether you are unambiguous, whether you are MLS, whether you are really, really high yellow, whether you are militant on behalf of either one or anything in between, let me tell y'all this. We men have to worry about things that go beyond just movie roles and modeling careers. Real representation might be political. We can worry about that, but representation in just fictitious Hollywood roles and modeling careers are vanity to us. You talk about these things, but when y'all get to arguing with each other over that, then eventually I start to peep game and I realize, okay, they done forgot about how men actually matter. Now it's just about pedestalizing themselves in the eyes of men. And I've seen even some of the smart women slip into that and fall into that. I don't even blame you when you just forget. We're human. We're going to do that. There are things women like that men don't, and vice versa. But you can't expect men to really be tripping about that. But if we're going to, then we have to undo the Malcolm X movie and redo it with a different cast. And that's what we have to do. As far as history goes, I do believe that there are going to be some histories, some historical lessons and some heroes that are going to be overlapping. We're not going to sort out with a clear delineation exactly who belongs to which one. Because remember, Muhammad Ali died before there was a golden sphere. Malcolm X died before there was a golden sphere. Both of them did. If they were resurrected right now, we had to tell them all this stuff, it would shock them. So I'm not going to argue about whether they're black history or whether they're golden history. There is overlap. Two things can be true at the same time. What were they trying to represent? They were not trying to misrepresent their shade, and they were positively representing the race. Okay, well, that's on them. That's what they were doing. I'm not going to sit up here and post-death try to redefine them and who they are and what they were about. We black Muslims, those of us of any black origin or any black blood percentage, if I can still call myself black, I guess maybe I can't anymore. I'm not sure. I'm still waiting on the jury's still out. But the point I'm making is that those of us who are Muslim of black origin get on non-black Muslims because they try to do that with Malcolm in a racial sense. Well, Malcolm loved everybody. No, the F he didn't. He said he was willing to work with anyone that was willing to work for justice. That's what he said. That man was still militant. He was just militant about justice, not any longer just about complexion. Because even then, when he was militant about race and color, it was because he believed that there was a just race and an unjust race. Now, in the conflict, there is a race that's right and that's wrong. But what he believed at the time was, since the Western European went around and pillaged and plundered, he needed to be put in his place. Later on, we came to understand that whiteness itself did not make somebody evil. And this was exposure to the ones that aren't even Western European, but still considered white. And they're Muslim. He then came back and said, okay, well, now I know that they can be fair even when they're white skin and even blonde hair and blue eyes with white skin. I know that they can be fair. And understand this, Malcolm was not here trying to prove he was black. There's no question about it. There was never a question as to him trying to prove that. It wasn't something you could have proven. It was because Malcolm had dealt firsthand with the Wyatts and he knew what they were like and how they were. He knew why his father was a Garveyite. Same with Muhammad Ali, because people would say things to your face. That's why. And that's what I want people to remember and understand. Today, there have been people since his passing away that have been, they've been light-skinned and they've tried to prove that they were black. And usually that doesn't even happen when somebody's within the ambiguity threshold because they're not questioned. It becomes when they're beyond the ambiguity threshold. When they look like me, then there's a question of them trying to prove it. And usually that doesn't even work either, because when I was coming up, I knew myself. I wasn't trying to prove it. I couldn't prove it. I couldn't disprove it to someone that was intent on believing I was black. I couldn't disprove it to someone that hated everybody of any black blood. And I couldn't prove to someone that couldn't believe I was black that I was black. I already knew. I had friends that would tell someone that didn't know me, no, he's a blood. And I don't mean a damu, but at that point, that's what we use for someone of black blood. He's our blood. So, I knew my friends would have told somebody if they didn't know. That wasn't why but my reason for being so pro-black was really simple. I knew what the Wyatts were really about because I'd been to school with them as well. And I saw how they talked. And I knew how subconscious this racism was in the ones who consciously would not have willingly been racist. I still understood that they still wanted their little white world. And some of them wanted their parents' memories of a white world that wasn't even accurate. I was in school as a kid in the 80s and 90s, and I remember some of my classmates watching Leave It to Beaver and thinking those were the good old days and wanting to go back to it. That was really why Trump became as popular as he did. I don't support any of them. The point I'm making is that in the beginning of his campaign, Trump got popular because he was talking to ignorant, uneducated white folks in the Rust Belt with no jobs about how bad things had gotten. America's going to win again. You're going to go back to winning again, all over again. You're going to win so much you won't know what to do. You'll get sick of it. Man, come on, bro. See, in the end, it comes down to the fact that I've always stood wherever I stand. I've always stood there based on justice. I do not fibbagack about biases. That's not what it's about. I'm not in a space because, I don't listen and try to contribute because I am biased in your favor based on your phenotype. It is because I know that you've been blamed for things you did not do. You've been stereotyped for things that are not true. I know not only have I been through it, I saw it happen to others. Sometimes it was because they were MLS. Other times it was because they were jet black. And I've seen them stereotyped by people that look just like them. And seen them stereotyped by Wyatts. And I know that actually people in your phenotype were the least likely to go stereotyping people based on how they looked. And this is one thing I knew. That's why I've been standing where I've been standing. I've been pro-black male for a while because I know that in a gender conflict within the black community, it is not the men that started it. I know you ladies aren't going to agree, but then again, keep in mind, the same gynocracy that started this with us is the one that pushed you out for not being negatively stereotypically black enough. It wasn't just about you not being dark enough or not having strong enough hair per se, but even it's also because they would perceive you as simply being too feminine. And that was all it took. They started a conflict with you. It wasn't you that started it with them, let's be honest. But then when I say they started with us men too, you want to say, no, see, you act like I'm blaming you and I'm not. Some of y'all got triggered when I was pointing these things out. Yeah, everything I said about Western women was true. I didn't say that it had to be true for you. I even said in the comments that if you were in the golden sphere, I didn't say if you're a golden woman, but if you're in the golden sphere, you've already shown an ability to think independently. You don't have to be the same way as every other Western woman, but the bulk of Western women are effing problematic, white or black. End of story. No, the men didn't start the problems. No, we didn't drive the women away. The men got driven away. Even the Wyatt men got driven away by the Wyatt ladies. That's why they're going to Southeast Asia. The planes going to Southeast Asia are loaded with black men and white men alike. The experiences may be different when they land, just Beeb. I've already covered this before too. A lot of brothers going to Southeast Tropical Asia. And even, here's the thing. Some say, well, they just want you for your money. If you just want a brother for his money, he gonna bounce. I just talked to a Muslim brother earlier. He didn't leave or he didn't split up with his wife because she was after him for the money. He left because her family was pressuring her for his money and she wasn't willing to go along with it. He didn't want her to have to choose between the two, so he split. I don't know how they called it quits, but I know his reason was that he did not want her having to choose between him and her family. So she could stay with the family. But he gone, and so is that money. It wasn't even her. Just talk to a Muslim brother like that. When you try this stuff on black men, and that includes MLS men for all practical purposes, it ain't gonna work. You think I'm gonna go to Malaysia? If my wife walks in this car right now and tells me, hey, you know what, black, we done, I don't like you no more. Gone. Go pack your stuff and get out. You think I'm gonna go to Malaysia and hit the masjid up and tell their mom, and then find someone, and they come after me for the money, and 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 I stay with them? You think that's what's going to happen? I already married abroad before. I married in Northern Africa. She didn't come after me for the money. I sent more to her. Because I would say in Arabic, Alati tatlab akal testahak akthar. That means she who asked for less deserves more. So she got more. She didn't ask. She spoiled me. I spoiled her. That's it. As best I could. So I know brothers ain't there for that. Brothers go places where they ain't gonna be hit up for just that money. And you know what? The Southeast tropical Asian women know this. They know this. So in all honesty, a lot of us are still feeling our way around and learning. And that's what's gonna lead to a lot of the infighting. But the infighting largely, for the most part, is on the part of the ladies. Most of the men ain't in on it. I myself don't have to go in on McCham. Now, I'm going to tell you this, McCham. If you're talking about mixed people trying to erase black folks in terms of media representation, number one, like I said, Hollywood and modeling jobs ain't crap anyway. Two, in the UK, I'll take your word for it until someone else disputes it. Then I'll listen to both of y'all, because I don't know the UK like that. But in the US, where Hollywood is, that is not the truth. No, bro. Because remember, most MLS people, McCham, are not Goldensphere. They're not aware. They don't see themselves as a different race. They don't think they can replace their own race. That's all. If you didn't say that, then no biggie. If you did, here's the correction. But no, I want the rest of y'all to notice. See, McCham and I don't have to go in on each other like this. And it ain't just because we both Muslim. It's because, for the most part, he's behaved as a Muslim when I've been observing, without him knowing I'm observing. So if he behaved like a non-Muslim, and if he behaved worse than any of us are supposed to behave, I wasn't there to see it. And if I do, then I'm going to say something. I ain't seen it yet. I'm going to be fair to him like I'm trying to be fair with y'all. Like I'm trying to be fair even with the gynocrats that push black men away. Hell, Bossy said I ain't here to be fair, and I still try to be fair to her. And that's why I'm going in on 2 MLS men, supposedly, who went in on McCham when he was being respectful. They were being disrespectful. Now, Adonis, maybe you just troll. I don't know, bro. I'm really not sure. I've seen you in chats before. You didn't troll some other people, so I don't know that you are a troll, and this is nothing personal. But both of y'all were out of line and disrespectful to a respectful person. And the day you admit that you out of line and respectful is the day I fuck the shuck up, won't say nothing no more, because you admitted you got out of pocket. We ain't here to start grudges. And you two idiots decided to start a grudge. Go on back over there to black folk. Y'all been stepping on us for 400 years. He's from the UK. That ain't been a problem for that long there. Close your mouths, bruh. He and I have already talked it out. Y'all ain't had conversations with him before. There ain't no hatred. We're 2 related groups of people going back to the same continent who've agreed that we're not going to intentionally misrepresent each other. That's what it is. That's the understanding we got. Multiracial movement, at the very least, she didn't abuse the man. She just straight said he'd be cool with me if he hadn't done said, but at least she went to the talking points. Gentlemen, you guys are supposed to be men. If you just have to troll and say ignorant, immature things like this, then that means you're not old enough to be using YouTube. Get the F off of it. I thought you had to be 18 or above to use it. So I'm tired of this, man. I really am. I'm sick and tired of seeing a lot of the infighting, but really I'm sick and tired of seeing what it's about. But gentlemen, understand, most of us, we ain't been in on the infighting. We've seen it, and sometimes we've been the subject of the infighting. Not we ourselves as human beings, but our resources and our attention, which is the same thing that the sisters fight over in the community. The matriarchs, the gynocrats. Boom, Shika, Bon, Quisha, and Sapphire will argue with each other. It was over these things that they decided to go ahead and kick some of the ladies out who went on to join the Goldensphere. Not over us as valuable human beings, but over us as doings. Just the resources and the labor and the attention and the validation. That's it. Nothing else. And over just those things, they turned around and kicked some ladies out. And the ladies wound up joining the Goldensphere. But you know what? Holden Ahmed brought up a valid point. There's some ladies that did not come in through the likes of I Am Eloho and Chrissy and all the other, the ones who will bash MLS folks at times, according to what you all have said. I ain't listened to them in a long time. Some of you came through these circles, and if that's the case, okay, hold the phone. Don't they also have something to say about black men and then turn around and big up white men and encourage each other to conceive more of you? See, if you're going to throw off their disdain for your shade and phenotype, you need to also throw off their anti-black misandry. Some of y'all ain't done that. And then the others of you that either you came through that and you threw off the anti-black misandry, or you didn't come through that circle at all. And you came in and you've had every intention of being fair to men. As fair as you could possibly be, considering that you've been raised in the West, which does not train women to be fair to men. But you're still trying, and I respect you for that. And so, understand too, ladies, we men see this. We're taking notice of this. And understand, gentlemen, too. We ain't here to act like kids. We are not here to act like teenagers. Not at all. If you want to actually be superior, and most of you would say, it's not about being superior, it's about being safe and being fair. And I'm with you on that. But if some of you want to actually be superior, then you got to act it. You got to act more adult than the next person. The way that McCham acted in the chat, despite how Adonis and Carbon Master were going in on him immaturely, made him the superior person that day, that night for you all. There's nothing I can say to defend what you two did. And as a matter of fact, where I'm living right now, where I'm parked right now, I'm going to tell y'all straight. The colorism arguments that even the colorism crybabies have in the West, where you all live and where I used to live, actually is true here in the East. There's no doubt about it. Every time there's colorism here, it is the paler person crapping on whoever's darker. Hands down, it's always that. Black folks here don't have an insult for the non-black Arabs yet. I'm trying to change that. That's real. I'm standing on your side because in the West where you are, you're the one that's unfairly blamed, falsely accused, negatively stereotyped, and you didn't do anything to deserve it. It's wrong, and I say so because that's what's fair. I don't tell you all, accept my religion or die. I don't do that. That's not even allowed for us. That's a stereotype. But the only one, ironically, the only one in our faith that's going to be allowed to do that and will do it is Jesus when he gets back. That's another topic for another day. But until then, we ain't allowed to be like, accept Islam or die. Jesus is the one that's going to come back and say that. But don't take my word for it. Stay alive if you can until he gets back and see. If I'm wrong, you get to gloat on me. But the point I'm making is that even though I don't come in and preach this when it comes to my religion, don't get it twisted. I am as fair as I am because I'm commanded to be in my faith. And if McCham behaves like he ain't Muslim and ain't never read the Quran a day in his life, then I got to get on him too, but I don't have to yet. What is on his channel, where I can go and look at it any time, does not show an actual hatred. If he has shown actual hatred himself, not someone else, but he himself has shown it, it was on someone else's stream and I didn't know about it. And if he hasn't done it, then I'm not going to ever accuse him of it. That's fair. I wouldn't do this to any of you. But over here in the East where I am, no, the colorism is exactly as it is stereotyped to be. The way they're complaining about it in the West over there is really true here, except there's no violence and it's not systemic. It's just cultural. However, that's the direction it takes. No one here ever discriminates against anybody for being light-skinned. Sometimes, actually, I take that back. Sometimes the guys here will discriminate against Syrian men. My God, you're so white, what happened? Oh, you must have been sick. Come lay out in the sun with us. Oh, come on, you can't sit in the sun for 15 years. Sometimes that. And that's usually as a teenager and as a young adult. So even then, I could honestly say it does go both ways. To the men. Not so much to the women. But if you're going to act like that in the chat towards McCham, who's not there to disrespect you, then understand this. You will prove everything that they said to be correct when it was previously false. Don't take on the Eastern colorism model and apply it to the West. Don't do that, gentlemen. We ain't here for the colorism. We're against it, right? Because if you ain't, fit the guck out. The women need to have this conversation. At the very least, the fact that there's infighting amongst them means they're drawing some lines in the sand, to be fair. Sometimes they don't have to fight, but there are times they do have to. A lot of this conflict going on had to happen. Unless, of course, they all agree that they don't really care if men get involved or not. Now, they don't all agree on that, so they got to fight about this because some are like, the men ain't worth nothing. They need to worship us, and that's it. They owe us, and we never owe them. And then others of them are saying, we got to be fair about this because we actually want something offline one day. So they had to fight this out. And I'm going to say the same thing on the men's side in order to be a fair man. If you are going to be disrespectful to respectful people, fit the guck out, because you ain't going to do nothing but make enemies we weren't looking for. What were you doing in the chat if you didn't listen to what Mrs. Golden and Hybrid Vigor said? We're not here picking fights. People are picking with us and we'll fight back, but we ain't picking fights. Did you not hear what they said, you two? McChan went on respectfully, and y'all just got disrespectful. Suppose he goes back and he says, what you have said. Suppose he goes back to the pro-blacks and the pro-whacks, the hoteps and the no-teps, the sincere and the dumb ninjas amongst them, and says, everything you all could have imagined is true. The bias comes as soon as people lose their melanin. They become biased. It's genetic. It's categorical. Suppose he goes back and he says this, and he's not lying because he really thinks that's what it is. And he shows this as proof. Shows what you two said as proof. You two aren't going to put your names and faces out there and take the heat and say, it was just us. Nobody else did it. Nobody else did that and said that to him. It was just us two. You ain't going to do it. The minute you admit that you made a mistake, I'll shut up. If you get arrogant and try to defend your position, then I'm going to be even worse. Thanks for listening. Black Heart, Black Mind, Blackout.